In January of 1848, a single man looked down into a shallow river in California and changed the future of America forever. What he saw wasn't large. It wasn't dramatic, just a small, yellow glint caught in the current. But that glint would ignite the greatest gold rush the world had ever seen. Within months, whispers turned into shouts. Shouts turned into stampedes. And ordinary people, farmers, sailors, shopkeepers, abandoned everything to chase a dream buried in riverbeds and mountains. Some became legends. Most lost everything. And here's the part most people don't realize. The gold never disappeared. It's still there, still waiting in rivers, creeks, and forgotten hills of California, quietly discovered by modern prospectors more than 170 years later. Before we begin, if you're fascinated by real treasure stories, historical gold rushes, and modern discoveries that feel almost unbelievable, make sure to subscribe to the channel. New stories like this are coming, and you won't want to miss the next one. Now imagine this. California before the rush. No highways, no cities, no canals, just rivers cutting through untouched land, carrying gold that no one knew how to claim. This is the story of the California Gold Rush, and why, even today, the search isn't over. Before gold transformed California into a land of obsession and opportunity, it was something very different. Quiet, remote, almost forgotten. In the mid-1800s, California sat at the far edge of the American map. It was a place of wide valleys, dense forests, and rivers that carved slowly through mountains untouched by industry. Few Americans lived there. Fewer still imagined it would ever matter. Small settlements clung to the land. Native tribes had lived along the rivers for generations, fishing and traveling waters that quietly carried something far more valuable than anyone realized. Gold flowed through those rivers every single day, but no one was looking for it. To most of the world, California was distant and inconvenient. Reaching it meant months of travel, by ship around South America, across dangerous oceans, or by wagon through deserts and mountains that kill the unprepared. It wasn't a place people rushed toward. It was a place they avoided. And that is what makes what happened next so remarkable. Because in a land where almost nothing seemed to happen, something world-changing was about to begin. All it took was one man, one river, and one moment of discovery. On the morning of January 24th, 1848, James Wilson Marshall wasn't searching for gold. He was just doing his job. Marshall was overseeing construction at Sutter's Mill, a small sawmill being built along the American River in Northern California. The work was routine. The river was low. The mill race needed inspection. As Marshall walked along the water, something caught his eye. A small, bright fleck in the shallow current. At first, he dismissed it. California was full of strange stones. But curiosity made him stop. He bent down, picked it up, and turned it in his hand. It was heavy, too heavy for an ordinary rock. Marshall tested it the only way he knew how, biting it. The metal didn't break. It didn't crumble. It held firm. Gold. The discovery should have remained a secret. And for a short time it did. Marshall and John Sutter, the owner of the mill, tried desperately to keep the news quiet. They knew exactly what gold could do, and they were right to be afraid. Workers began leaving the site without explanation. Small pouches grew heavier. The riverbanks were disturbed in new places every day. The secret was already leaking. By the time word reached San Francisco, it was unstoppable. The California gold rush had begun. At first, people didn't believe it. Stories of gold had surfaced before, and most of them ended in disappointment. But this time, Bala Inachi. Ships arriving in San Francisco carried proof. Real gold dust, real nuggets, real money. By the end of 1848, the secret was gone. In 1849, the world moved. Tens of thousands of people dropped their lives and ran toward California. They came from the East Coast, from South America, from Europe, from China, from anywhere a rumor could reach. They were called the 49ers. Some traveled by ship, risking storms and disease. Others crossed deserts and mountains in wagons that broke down long before the journey ended. Many never made it at all. San Francisco exploded overnight. Ships were abandoned in the harbor as crews ran for the gold fields. Streets filled with tents. Prices skyrocketed. Law disappeared. A shovel that once cost $1 now cost 20. A meal could cost a week's wages. Gold was everywhere, and somehow never enough. Rivers were torn apart. Hillsides collapsed. Forests vanished. And through all of it ran one shared belief. The next pan could change everything. For every story of sudden fortune, there were hundreds that ended in silence. The gold rush promised freedom and wealth. What it often delivered was exhaustion, loss, and regret. Most of the men who reached California had never mined anything in their lives. They worked from sunrise to dark, standing in freezing rivers, hands raw and bleeding, chasing flecks of gold that rarely added up to anything meaningful. Disease spread quickly through overcrowded camps. Cholera, dysentery, scurvy. Medical care was scarce, expensive, or non-existent. A minor injury could become a death sentence. Violence followed opportunity. Claim disputes turned into fistfights, then into shootings. Law was inconsistent and often corrupt. Justice depended on who had the most men, the loudest voice, or the quickest draw. And then there was deception. Suppliers, not miners, became the real winners. Shovels, boots, tents, and food were sold at outrageous prices. Some miners found gold, only to spend it all just trying to survive another month. Many never struck anything at all. They went home poorer than they arrived. Or they never went home. The California gold rush built dreams and buried just as many. When a frenzy of the gold rush began to slow, California was left scarred, but not empty. Thousands of miners packed up and left, convinced there was nothing more to find. Camps were abandoned almost overnight. Claims were deserted. Tools rusted where they had been dropped for the last time. But not all the gold was taken. Some miners hid what they found, afraid of theft. They buried small caches along riverbanks or in the hills, planning to return later. Many never did. Others struck gold in remote locations, far from major camps, and kept it secret until illness, violence, or simple bad luck ended their plans. Stories began to circulate of lone prospectors who vanished after promising discoveries, of maps drawn on scraps of paper and lost in fires, of claims that produced gold for a few days and then were never found again. California became a land not just of mined gold, but of missed gold. And in many cases, no one ever went back to look, because the gold rush had taught people something brutal. Knowing where gold is doesn't mean you'll live long enough to keep it. Despite the chaos and obsession of the gold rush, the truth is simple. The miners of the 1800s did not take all the gold. Not even close. Most prospectors worked fast and inefficiently. They focused on the easiest deposits, gold sitting directly in riverbeds or loose gravel. Once those surface deposits ran thin, they moved on. They didn't have the tools. They didn't have the technology. And often, they didn't have the patience. Fine gold, tiny flakes invisible to the naked eye, washed right through their pans. Nuggets slipped deeper into cracks in bedrock. Entire hillsides rich with gold were ignored because they were too hard to work. Some areas were simply unreachable. Steep canyons, remote mountain streams, places where supplies couldn't reach and help wouldn't come. When the rush slowed, many miners left not because the gold was gone, but because they were done, tired, broken. They assumed California had given up everything it had to offer. They were wrong, because gold doesn't disappear. It waits. More than 170 years after the first rush, people are still searching for gold in California. Not as a mass migration, not as chaos, but quietly. Modern prospectors don't arrive in wagon trains. They come alone or in small groups. They carry metal detectors, pans, and lightweight tools, and something far more valuable than luck: knowledge. They study old maps, read forgotten journals, follow the same rivers the 49ers once tore apart, but with patience the original miners never had. And they still find gold. Not every day, not everywhere, but often enough to keep coming back. Some are hobbyists, spending weekends along creeks, content with a few flakes in a vial. Others take it seriously, tracking historical claims, working bedrock cracks, and revisiting areas long dismissed as worked out. The difference is precision. Modern tools can detect what 19th century miners missed: find gold trapped deep in crevices, nuggets buried beneath layers of sediment, places no one bothered to check twice. And sometimes, the finds are far from small. Modern gold discoveries in California aren't legends. They're documented. Over the past decades, individual prospectors have uncovered gold in places thought to be exhausted more than a century ago. Rivers that were worked heavily during the gold rush still produce flakes, pickers, and sometimes sizable nuggets. In 2013, a couple hiking in Northern California discovered a cache of gold coins buried in old cans, a reminder that not all gold was ever recovered. While not a mining find, it proved something important. Gold was hidden, and sometimes forgotten. Metal detectorists continue to find nuggets weighing several ounces. Not every year, not every season, but often enough to confirm that California still holds real, recoverable gold. Some prospectors document their finds openly. Others stay quiet, wary of attention, land restrictions, and competition. And that silence echoes the past. Because the moment gold is found, the question isn't just how much. It's who else might come looking. Gold is patient. It doesn't rush. It doesn't move unless nature moves it. And it doesn't care how many people came before you. Rivers shift slowly over decades, sometimes centuries. Floods tear apart old riverbeds and expose layers that haven't seen daylight since the gold rush, or long before it. Earthquakes crack bedrock. Rain loosens soil. Time does the work miners never could. This is why gold is still being found. Not because it was missed by accident, but because it was hidden by nature itself. The early prospectors fought against the land. Modern prospectors work with it. They wait for the right season, the right water level, the right moment when nature reveals what it has been holding. And patience changes everything. Because gold doesn't reward desperation. It rewards those willing to return again and again, knowing they might find nothing at all. Until one day they do. Ask anyone who has ever found gold, real gold, and they will all describe the same moment. Silence. Not excitement. Not shouting. Just a pause. A second where the world seems to slow down. The pan is tilted. Water runs off. Gravel shifts. And then something doesn't move the way it should. A weight where there shouldn't be one. A color that doesn't belong. Gold. At first, there's doubt. You turn in the light. Rub it between your fingers. You don't want to believe it too quickly. And then it hits you. This piece of metal has been here for thousands, maybe millions of years. It survived floods, earthquakes, and the chaos of the gold rush. It waded through generations of people who walked past without ever seeing it. And now it's in your hand. For modern prospectors, the value isn't just financial. Most nuggets aren't worth a fortune. Some barely cover the cost of gas and equipment. But that doesn't matter, because for a moment, you are connected to every miner who ever stood in that river. Every person who dreamed of striking gold. Every life changed or ruined by the same hope. And that feeling is priceless. The California Gold Rush is often remembered as a moment in the past. A wild chapter, a finished story, a dream that burned out. But that isn't the truth. The gold never left. It didn't vanish when the 49ers packed up and went home. It didn't disappear when the rivers were torn apart or the hills were stripped bare. It stayed, hidden in cracks, buried beneath layers of time, waiting for someone patient enough to notice. Today, the rush looks different. There are no stampedes, No crowds, no shouting in the streets, just quiet rivers, careful hands, and people who understand that real treasure rarely reveals itself all at once. If you enjoyed this story and want more real treasure history, lost gold, and modern discoveries that feel almost unbelievable, make sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss what's coming next. And now, I want to hear from you. Do you think there's still significant gold left to be found in California today? Or do you believe the gold rush truly took it all? Would you try your luck if you had the chance? Share your thoughts in the comments below, because some treasures aren't just about what you find. They're about why you keep looking.